and that's what that is the stand of the patent office itself. And well, to cut a very long story short, okay, the office realized that the manual that they prepared, okay, by cogging various provisions from different laws together and clubbing them in one place, was not tenable. That was not even reflective of the practices of the patent office itself. Okay, and then in 2009, they've now come out with something called the Patent Office Procedure, okay, which stays clear of all matters of interpretation. And Prabir now informs me that there is now, this issue is coming back into reconsideration perhaps. Practical reasons against software patents. Now, there are traditionally 4 incentives that the patent system caters to. 1, incentive to invent. 2, incentive to disclose. 3, incentive to commercialize. And 4, incentive to invent substitutes. That is, when one particular path is blocked, okay, there is an incentive, okay, by the very fact of that path being blocked, to invent substitutes for that. However, apart from the last, patenting of software does not really aid any of the other, of the first 3. One issue is the issue of what is variously known as patent landmines, submarine patents, gridlock patents, and what all of these really point to is that there is no independent creation exception to in patent law. Given that computer programs are algorithms, okay, having monopolies over such abstract ideas, and that's exactly what these are, abstract ideas, not even patentable concrete ideas. Okay, so this is detrimental to innovation because you're covering the building blocks of this technology. I think these various metaphors that you're using of landmines, submarine patents with torpedoes, of gridlocks out of which you can't escape, these traffic jams, okay, says it all. Now, in various times, people have invented substitutes. However, the more and more patents that have been granted, the more difficult it is to invent these substitutes. And that is a very important point. So while earlier you might have gotten over the LZW compression method, which is patented, okay, and used in the GIF format to come up with PNG as an alternative. Now, when you're really talking about things such as video on the web, okay, now it's becoming increasingly difficult. The progress that the BBC is making on these 2 standards that it's developing, called Dirac and the other one, yeah, okay, I'm forgetting the name of the other one. Okay, but Schrödinger, sorry, yeah, Dirac and Schrödinger, those are progressing very slowly because of the existence of patents on things like MPEG, right? Now, the WebM format that has recently been proposed as an open format, lots of people are going through it in very minute detail, and many have come out. Okay, even people who are supportive of free and open source software have come out saying that it might actually infringe on patents. So the more patents there are, the more difficult it becomes to actually create something that avoids all these patents while still being useful. Just a indicative list of the number of companies and organizations that hold patents over the H.264 format, okay, on video. Okay, Columbia University, Electronics and Telecommunications Research Institute of Korea, France Telecom, Fujitsu, LG Electronics, Mitsubishi, Microsoft, Motorola, Nokia, Philips, Robert Bosch, and it goes on. The most diligent companies can't really ensure, okay, even by hiring the smartest lawyers, that they don't get in any of these patent tangles. Now the FFII has did this experiment. Okay, they set up an example, a thought experiment in a sense, set up an example of an online shopping video and pointed out that a simple one-page thing, okay, would violate at least 20 different patents on e-commerce. Now, Microsoft recently lost a case against I4I when I4I surfaced with a patent that covered custom XML as implemented in Word 2003 and 2007. Microsoft had to cough up, and it was actually injuncted to stop. Microsoft had to ship patches to all its customers and disable the functionality that it had built in, just in order to bypass that patent. BlackBerry was hit by patents over by NTP. Again, had to cough up $617 million as settlement.
And that patent was later on invalidated. The same patent which...
Well, before it was invalidated in that case, okay, they also went on to sue other people. Okay, NTP also filed cases against AT&T, Sprint, Nextel, T-Mobile, Verizon, Wireless, Palm. Microsoft was hit by that same patent, okay, through a different company called Visto, okay, which actually had taken a license. These are small companies that aren't really, at least when they did the suing, weren't really putting into use any of these patents. They sued because they had them and they had nothing else to lose. They couldn't be slapped with some 40 million other countersuits. That is why they succeeded. The term of patents, 20 years, is ludicrous. The turnover of any technology is nowadays is between 5 months to 3 years maybe. Anything beyond that, even thinking about it, is positively ludicrous. The software industry has so far progressed greatly without patents. Indeed, the first 2 generations managed. What would happen to us if things like bubble sort or quick sort, if these sorting mechanisms, just think about it, if those were patented, where would we be today? Copyright exists as an alternative system for software, which has a much lower amount of protection. There is no reason that you must go to IDEA and protect functionality of software as well. I think the next point is one of the most important, that of insufficient disclosure. The point was raised earlier today of if source code were possibly attached with every single patent, the world would be a much better place. The patent system isn't designed that way. The patent system, however, is supposed to be designed around the idea of disclosure. And that is one of the incentives really for awarding patents, the fact that you get something back to society through that disclosure. However, even the supposedly easy example that Mishi had put up of the BlackBerry patent was, I know, very confusing to follow. So it's not just, and if even through extreme amounts of due diligence, okay, these large corporations couldn't really avoid stepping on any of these patents, then how are the best of us supposed to do so? So we see that most of the incentives that we are talking about, okay, just to rephrase, incentive to invent, incentive to disclose, incentive to commercialize, and incentive to invent substitutes, are not really taken care of by providing patents for software. Instead, what we end up doing, and this is the last point on practicality, is that we end up hurting free and open source software. We end up ensuring a marketplace where some kinds of licenses are allowed to prosper, where other kinds of licenses are not allowed to do so. Okay, and very strangely enough, those licenses which grant the most to their users and to others are the ones that suffer the most through this. So, and it's also a geographical issue. because many of these free and open source software projects are located in countries where patents are recognized, so what ends up happening is that by default, this one regime of software patents gets exported, okay, not through policy, but through practicality of certain kinds of things not being included in the default installations. If I have to listen to MP3s in many default installations, I have to separately download codecs. In India, I don't think any of the codecs that cover MP3 would actually be valid. Okay, at least they haven't been tested. But still, I don't have the option generally of installing, of getting a pre-packaged operating system which has MP3 included. At least it's not very easy. And that becomes a big problem, whereby the configuration in one area of the world, okay, it's exported to the entire world just by default. And I think Sudhir will carry on here.